I literally thought I was going to a club. That's how, far fetched from reality I was. But I just drank a beer, smoked a blunt, and I show up to this place to be interviewed, and I realize it's this recovery place. And I was like, oh, crap. And so I get interviewed, and they accept me to do community service there because I had a whole lot to do. Mm-hmm. And slowly but surely, like, recovery infiltrated my life. And I realized that, I started getting my son back in my life. And I realized in that moment that I had more problems than just meth.
Welcome back to the Hopeaholics Podcast. I'm your girl, Natalie Eva Marie.
And I'm Chad Carlson, and you're listening to the #1 addiction and mental health podcast.
And you guys, if you or a loved one is struggling, make sure you head to askevamarie.com or chaddick.com and chat with one of our AI companions 24/7.
Or text the number right here on the screen.
Together, we are breaking the stigma around addiction and mental health.
And fighting the fentanyl epidemic.
Now, let's get into the episode.
Samantha, welcome to the Hopeaholics Podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Of course.
This is
back in action.
Yeah, this is the real deal right here.
The real deal. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Extended version.
This is the extended version, right?
Mm-hmm.
When were you here?
A couple months ago. So I think in either end of September or early October. It was right before my 50th birthday, so I remember that.
Okay. How was your birthday?
It was good. I had a 50th, and people came and had a doctor's appointment and told me I was hard of hearing. And
oh my gosh, shut up.
I was like, thanks. Right on my 50th. That's great.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So they're like, you might want hearing aids. And I'm like, oh, thanks very much.
I'm going to do one thing before we get really started is push the mic in front of you.
Right here?
Yeah, right there.
Okay.
Perfect.
How
do I sound? Do I sound okay? Okay. I feel like I can't hear myself as well as I normally do right now. But
really?
Yeah. But let's actually get this party started.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
What do we know about you? Where did you grow up? Where are you from?
Yeah.
Well, initially I was born in Honolulu, and my dad was in the military, so I got to do that little quick travel. But I left when I was 3, and then we went Pasadena, Washington, Oregon, South Lake Tahoe, and then I ended up in Covina, and that's where I stayed, pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah.
How old were you when you actually ended up in Covina? After all the
14.
So, oh wow, so that's a lot of travel before.
Yeah.
Before
so
the ages. Lots of schools. How was that though? Having to meet new people every time you went to a new school for you.
Well, it's called adaptation, right? So I was a chameleon even at that age. So I just like people. And so I would just kind of fit in trying to just be with whatever crowd I could be with because I knew I was leaving. So it was a temporary thing, and I knew that and wasn't sure where I was going to go next. And so.
Do you have siblings?
I do. I have 3 sisters and a brother.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So and I'm the oldest.
Okay, so there's a bunch of you guys, the crew was moving.
Well, it was me and my sister from my mom and my dad, and we moved around a lot before we moved with my father and at 14, and that's where the other 2 sisters came along. Well, my brother as well in Washington.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
So then you ended up in Covina. Now, before Covina, did your addiction start to
manifest?
Yeah.
No, actually, well, I had my first blackout prior to Covina. Mm-hmm. That's what ended me in Covina because I actually, I was drinking really heavily at this party, and I was 14, and because of some of the childhood trauma, I got really, really drunk, and all of the things that were happening to me kind of flooded through my head during this blackout, and I tried to commit suicide. Oh. And so my mom was like, I can't handle this girl anymore. And my grandmother was like, why don't you send her to her dad's and try to see how that works out? And so that's how I ended up in Covina.
Oh, wow.
Kind of shipped to my dad's, and then my sister came later. And
And your sister's younger than you?
yeah, all my sisters are younger.
Okay, you're the oldest.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's that's a big jump for your first time drinking, and then to take it to that level.
Well, I should have known, like, at that point, like, it didn't fit well with me because I always crossed that invisible line. I always drank to the point where I was, like, crossing it. You know, I was either just completely drunk off my butt and I'd black out or do some stupid crap, and, you know, and I should have known then, but it just made me feel better. Mm-hmm. And it was always about, I just want to get out of what I'm feeling, and I would always cross that invisible line.
So what happened after, like, what did your parents do? Or how did they find out, actually, when you were initially in your first blackout and then tried to commit suicide?
Well, during that time, there was some things going on in my household. My stepfather was sneaking into my bedroom and doing things he shouldn't be doing, right? And that is what was flooding through my head that night. And so my friends were freaking out because, you know, they're trying to hold me down because I was quite violent, I guess, at the time. And they're trying to hold me down, and they end up calling my stepfather and having him come pick me up, which triggered some other stuff. He drove around for a while because I kept on, like, calling him out, and he was driving around because he didn't want people to find out. And he ended up having to take me to the hospital because I was bleeding, and it was kind of graphic. And so he ended up taking me to the hospital. I was put on a 5150, and you know, I was at the talk of the school when I went back to school after those 3 days. And then shortly after that is when I ended up leaving.
And that's when you went to live with your dad?
Yeah.
And then how was it with your dad? Or
Well,
did your mom find out? Did you tell your mom the truth of what was going on?
Not at that point. I mean, we told my mom prior to, and he denied it. And it was, you know, because DCFS was always called to the house because people suspected something wrong, and they would come and they would go. And so we weren't really protected as kids either by, you know, unfortunately, my mom worked, and she was so blinded by herself that she didn't see what was going on. And so later we ended up putting him in prison. But
Oh, wow.
yeah, so that was when she actually had to accept the fact that it was true, and or that it happened or allegedly happened. I found out later she wasn't quite sure.
Was he doing that with you and your sister?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I was the oldest. So, you know, me just trying to protect my sister, I would, like, send my sister and my brother out to play, and, like, I would stay there. So, like, he wouldn't do anything to them. And so at a very young age, it created this sense of insecurity and not feeling safe. And it also created this codependency and having to take care of my brother and my sister and wanting them to be okay and not caring about me.
So then you ended up leaving there and to go live with your dad, and was that by yourself, and your sister and brother still were with your mom?
At first, but my sister came really shortly after that, and then my brother ended up staying out there, and he has his own journey of what took place, because my brother and I have been kind of estranged since I left at 14. We've maybe seen each other a couple of times, and maybe talked to each other, you know, a couple handfuls of times since I left.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah. And then how was it, like, walk us through how it was once you got to your dad's?
Well, when I got to my dad's, my stepmother was also quite abusive, but the sexual abuse wasn't happening. And so it was a better type of abuse. And so you just get into this level of acceptance of, like, oh, it's not that bad. And so I started to, like, accept the emotional. And, you know, soon later, my sister was experiencing physical abuse. And I'd come home and my stepmother would be on her, slapping her, calling her names and things like that. And so I would try to protect her. And it was just going from one extreme to another extreme, just in different ways. And so we were just at a young age, like not protected by, you know, unfortunately not protected by our early caregivers. Not like, I don't really blame them. It's just what was, you know.
Was there substance abuse going on inside of either one of those homes?
Yeah. I mean, I later found that out. You know, my mom, you know, she drinks, and my dad and my stepmom was doing meth. She was slamming it. So I didn't know any of that until later she came to my house to pick some up when I was like 20. And I was like, oh, that's the issue. Wow. That's what was going on when I was a kid. But, you know, it was, you know, as far as my dad goes, I don't think my dad was, you know, I think he dibbled and dabbled here and there. I know he smoked weed, but like, I don't think he was at the extent that he was.
Yeah.
Or that she was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then how long did that situation go on for you and your sister in your dad's house?
So from 14 to 16, because my dad like realized that she was off her rocker, and he ended up actually sending me to my grandmother's and my sister to my grandmother's, and then he took my other two sisters and he went to her mother's, and they lived there with my other two sisters, and me and my other sister lived with my grandmother. And so for the first time at 16 till I was 18, there was a sense of security and safety and love and normalcy, you know? And I think, you know, that is what created, you know, they say like you have an ACE score, right? And so like mine is very, very high based off of all the trauma. And there's got to be a person that steps in that changes that direction. And my grandmother was that person for me. She changed the direction that I was going in, or that was happening, and made me feel safe and loved and valued, and, you know, introduced me to God at the time. And I mean, I didn't really catch on to it until later, but, you know, that was until I was 18.
And then were you drinking and using while living with your grandma, or were things like slowed down a little bit?
Yeah, once after the suicide attempt, I didn't really, you know, I was a pretty kind of square teenage girl from like 14 to 16, you know, and there was a little bit of drinking here and there, but again, every time I drank, I blacked out. And so it happened once in high school, and I blacked out and behaved in a really bad way, and it got around the school, and it was just, you know, that's just what happens when I drink. And so after that, like, I stopped, you know, for a while. I'd smoke a little weed here and there, but nothing crazy until I was 17. And my junior year in high school, I tried meth for the first time, and I hated it. But I heard that it worked for other people, and so like I knew it would work for me if I just kept trying it. And so that's what I did. I tried it until it worked for me, and it was off and running. At the age of 18, I moved out of my grandmother's house, and because I didn't want to disrespect her home, because I had that much respect for my grandmother. And I moved out of her house, and I got on my own, and I went down that path, and I ended up getting pregnant at a young age. You know, I graduated, but that's all I can say for my high school years.
So you got pregnant at what? How old were you?
I was 19 when I got pregnant. I was with my kid's father from the time we were 16, so till 25.
Oh, wow.
And so, you know, we were together for a while. He was my high school sweetheart. It was, but I ended up getting pregnant at 19 years old, and I had my son at 20.
And were you guys living together?
No. He really didn't want anything to do with his son at first. Didn't believe it was his. Kind of kept me. I was in Arizona for a moment when I was pregnant, and then I came back, and my son was kept a secret from his dad for like the first year. His mom knew, but his dad had no clue. And so we'd still be seeing each other, but he never validated the fact that my son was his. And so that was, reinforced some negative thinking. And then, of course, they did, once his dad found out, they did a paternity test and it was his. And so then he started stepping up and we ended up moving in together. And that began this journey of partying at my house, and all the guys would come over, and it was just a party at my house. So
how did it make you feel when he didn't accept the son as being his right off the bat?
I mean, it made me feel horrible, and it made me feel like not enough. Like I wasn't enough, my son wasn't enough. And, it reinforced some things that I felt about myself already because of all the crap that had happened to me as a kid. And so, which made it easy for me to do what I was doing, because this false sense of security that meth gave me, like I felt pretty enough, skinny enough, I felt all of these false senses of being that I just did more and more and more. And when you're getting positive attention, like you're looking better and you're getting this positive attention.
It's crazy, right?
It's so insane.
I had the same experience with meth.
Yeah.
And that's like really why I ended up being so addicted to meth. And I kept going back to meth because it was like I went from being like the ugly duckling to the, most handsome guy in the school. Like literally, that ended up, and it was like the people I had moved schools, and nobody knew the ugly duckling, and so I mean nobody at my new school knew the ugly duckling, and it was all because of meth, and I thought that was the end all cure all to everything in life for me, not just the fact that like I got skinny and handsome and the girls liked me. But like I did better in school. I cleaned my room. But the other things that I loved, like sports, those kind of went out the window because like I didn't have time to play sports anymore. And the gym was definitely not a thing when I was doing meth. Like I wasn't going there, but,
and also I like to like interject with like that. The drug is such a lie because like, yes, that is maybe what happens at the very beginning, but then meth also makes you look incredibly ugly. Like it like your soul is dark black, and the individuals that are consistently hooked on it, it's like a really sad thing to see an individual struggling with that type of addiction.
But it was a long time for me before that happened because like,
well, you were a kid, you were 13.
I was 13,
so
but
you had
I really didn't look like my soul was gone until after I got clean and relapsed 20 years later.
Yeah, I remember the day that like I realized that, oh, this is an actual problem, because I worked, I supported my family, I paid rent, I did all of those things, those yets that weren't going to happen, and I remember DCFS coming to my house. I had a little girl shortly after my son, like 4 years later, and we moved from this little 1-bedroom into a 2-bedroom. And I remember DCFS coming to my house and leaving a card on the door saying, "We'd like to speak with you." And I shipped my kids with their grandmother up to the high desert. I was like, well, if you can't find them, you can't take them.
Yeah.
And so I shipped them up to the high desert, and we were being evicted like the next day. So they were kicking us out. They were locking us out. And so I bounced. I was gone. I moved my stuff, and they couldn't find me. And I knew at that point in time that, I definitely have something going on. But at that time, it was like I was already done. It was already too late, and I had already made up this story and this narrative in my head that this is what life was going to look like. And, if they couldn't find my kids, then they can't take them. And so they stayed up there for a little while, and we went from hotel to hotel, and it was a pretty sad like existence for about 6 to 8 months. And then we moved in with his mom in a little 1-bedroom apartment with my kid's father and my 2 kids sleeping on the couch, and thought that I had arrived, that everything was okay again. And it obviously wasn't, because I was still stuck in my wanting to get loaded, and was kind of trapped there and couldn't, because I had to show up for my kids. I had to be a mom. And my mother-in-law at the time was making sure I was being a mom. And I was like, this is so stupid. I need some me time too. And me time meant I need to go get loaded. And I think deep down inside she knew what was going on.
Sure.
Yeah.
And was your baby's dad, was he also into doing the same things?
Not at all. Like he did it with me a couple of times.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, but it would cause so many fights if he found out that I was on one, or what. It's like trying to go to bed at night when you're not tired, and it's just sitting there in the bed, like with your eyes like wide open, and you're like trying to pretend to sleep because they'll find out, and that was my life for a really long time. So we just smoke a lot of weed. He did smoke weed, and so I would smoke and smoke and smoke and smoke, and then that's when my alcohol kicked off too, because if I had weed and alcohol, I could hide this other thing, because then she's just buzzed. She's just, she's stoned. In reality, I was tweaked out of my mind, and I was trying to get to sleep.
I don't want to jump far ahead. I just want to ask you how much sobriety, or how long has it been since the last time you used meth?
Actually, it's been 19 years. So September 16th of 2006 was the last time I used.
Wow.
Because that's the last time I went to jail. So
yeah.
That was like my 12th time getting arrested. And I don't know why the 12th time was the deciding factor, but it was when I admitted to my innermost self that I had a problem. And I knew, I was telling my grandmother, I called her from jail, and I never called her for anything, especially from jail. And I just told her, I said, I can't deal with my daughter, because my daughter passed away. So I couldn't deal with my daughter's death sober. Like, that was such a hard thing for me to deal with. But in reality, it was just another reason for me to use. And so I told my grandmother that, and I said, we have a curse on our last name. And she said, no, we just don't have enough God. And I was like, okay. And I was looking at 2.5 years, and I was actually let out on house arrest and a whole lot of restitution. But that began my journey into recovery. And so I have 18.5 years now, because I was still smoking weed and drinking. Didn't realize that was, a problem too. But I knew that it was always going to bring me back to,
When did you realize that those were a problem too?
Well, I had to do community service, and I thought I was going to a club, and it was the other club. It was an AA club, and I literally thought I was going to a club. That's how, far-fetched from reality I was. But I just drank a beer, smoked a blunt, and I show up to this place to be interviewed, and I realize it's this recovery place. And I was like, oh, crap. And so I get interviewed, and they accept me to do community service there, because I had a whole lot to do. And slowly but surely, like, recovery infiltrated my life. And I realized that, I started getting my son back in my life. And I realized in that moment that I had more problems than just meth. I realized that any kind of substance that was put in my body, that it was always going to go back to that. And I didn't want to be that person I was. Like, I knew that with every fiber of my being. I never wanted to do meth again. But had I been doing, drinking alcohol and smoking weed, it always took me back to that, because I've tried switching from scotch to brandy.
Sure.
I tried doing that, and it just didn't work. And I never wanted to become that same woman, because I just wanted to be a mom to my son. And because what I didn't realize is that my son not only lost his sister on that highway that day, but he lost his mother too. And it broke my heart to realize what I had done to my son through this. And so I had to make amends and show up. And so that's what got me to the rooms of, Alcoholics Anonymous, because that's where I ended up getting sober.
Can we go back
Sure.
to your story starting to I'm starting to remember it in my head. Sorry about your daughter and the loss. I'm remembering it all now from when you did the Recover Out Loud. Let's go back before that, though. Back to, so you had 2 children, boy and a girl.
Yes.
And when did you and the dad split up?
We were, honestly on and off. The end of our, any kind of relationship was about 24, 25 years old, when we just remained friends. And then we were good co-parents for a while. And then he got into another relationship, and, other people don't particularly understand how people can be so friendly and be the ex. And so it kind of severed that relationship. And he's married to today and have other kids with, but it severed our co-parenting relationship. And so we kind of stopped talking at that point.
This episode is brought to you by Wolfpack Bags. This gear is meant for anybody gym, lifestyle, to anybody that's on the move. I mean, I like to say that us here and everybody that tunes in, we're not average, we're always a wolf. They have all the goods that you need, especially for anybody that is looking for a bag to carry their meal prep, a lunch pail, anything like that. They have you covered. So once again, go to wolfpack.com, use the code Hopeaholics, save 10%, and join the pack.
And then what happened with your daughter in the accident?
How old was she?
She was 2 years and 3 months. And I tried to do a geographical. I thought that, if I just got away from the dope dealer, if I just got away from Covina or wherever I was, that everything would be okay. And I'd dry out and I can come back with a clear head. And I went to go visit my dad in Arizona. And unfortunately, I took a ride home from somebody who initially came in a car that had it was a full car. And he showed back up to take us in a Frontier, a Nissan Frontier, just a full bed, and that was it. And so there was no car seat. I just had my kids sitting in the seat, and I was moving to the floor, and the guy that was driving looked away to help, and he tried to overcorrect the vehicle, and that caused the car accident, and my kids were thrown over a 50-foot overpass. And then I broke my back, my hip, my tailbone. I shattered my wrist. But this was I never hit my head or my face or anything like that, because I was thrown from the vehicle. And I got back up to look for my kids on multiple broken bones and trying to stop vehicles. And I remember stopping, the semi truck stopped, and the police were called. And if I wasn't conscious, they would have never found my kids, because they wouldn't have known to look for them. And so I was, I shared with them, and I asked them about my babies, and I prayed to God that day, and God didn't, save my daughter. And so that began my journey of hating God for a very, very long time. And I began my road of absolute destruction. Homelessness, that's where all my incarcerations took place. I would put myself in very dangerous situations just because I hated myself. I was charged with my daughter's death because as a parent, you're 100% responsible for the safety of your children, and she wasn't in a car seat. I had to do some community service, Moms Against Drunk Driving, and I had to do a lot of different types of, I did the Safety Belt Safe USA. I was on Oprah Winfrey because of advocating for the safety of car seats and seat belts. And all I needed to do was not get in trouble, and it would have been off my record. But I couldn't stay sober for the life of me. And so that began, like I said, my arrests, and I got into trouble. So this was something that stayed on my record, and it's something that I had to look at and be accountable to. And that was the hardest thing for me to work through when I got sober. Yeah.
And what year was that?
When the accident?
Yeah.
2002.
2002.
Yeah.
And from 2002 to 2007, was it?
Six. Yeah.
Just a path of just destruction.
I got arrested in front of my son multiple times. He was removed from me, but with his dad. All those incomprehensible, demoralizing things that you would never want to happen in front of your child or in front of anybody for that matter, began to happen. And it was, I would be walking the streets at night because I had to sleep during the day because it was safer. It was just this insane chaos that I accepted. And I didn't know how to get out of. There was no cell phones back then. And, I was just, there wasn't none that I can afford back then. And, I had things, but I would carry around a suitcase, and hopefully stay a couch or get a hotel or, hopefully have enough to do that.
Were you in Covina during this time?
No, Covina was my safe place. I dibbled and dabbled in Covina, but I never got in any really trouble in Covina. So you don't crap in your own backyard.
Yeah.
And so
I did.
yeah. Well, I didn't do that, luckily, because, even when I got sober, like, and going to the meetings and stuff like that, these aren't people that I got loaded with.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's great.
yeah. Cause if they saw how I got loaded, they'd be like, that girl really needed help. And so it was, Corona was the main, but I had cases in Riverside, San Bernardino, LA County. And then I even had I didn't do any time in Orange County, but I lived in Fullerton for a short time as well. But it was as soon as the cops knew my name, I was gone. As soon as they were like, hey, Samantha, how are you? I was like, I'm out, gone. Because I knew I was going to get locked up because I had some kind of paraphernalia on me or something.
Is Covina next to West Covina?
Yeah.
That's kind of the reason why I asked, because like my one of the end of my destructive runs ended in West Covina, La Puente area in the year 2000. Yeah, December of 2000. It was pretty gnarly. A lot of meth, a lot of gangbangers.
Yeah, La Puente, we'll get that for you.
That's where I was getting that's where I was picking up from because I'm from like San Bernardino, down in the San Bernardino area, and I was picking it up and taking it back down there, and just a mess. I ended up in a gnarly car accident off the 10 freeway in Pomona. Probably should have died that day. God had different plans, though, thankfully.
Right.
Thankfully.
For
like,
sure.
and like, I mean, your story is just up to this point it's heartbreaking, but it's important. It's like your story's so important, and I'm like, this is why I wanted your full story told, because like it's so much bigger than that. The podcast itself is so much bigger than the Recover Out Loud meeting, and it's like,
Thank you.
Your story is powerful, and there's people out there that are still going through the same stuff.
Yeah.
And I just really want to show people that like you can go through hell and pain, unbearable pain that you think that you just can't move on from or get through or whatever, and change your life and have a life beyond, anything you thought it was going to be.
For sure.
Like, that's how I like to say it, because I never I don't know what my wildest dreams are pretty wild, and I'm not living those.
Right.
But I don't like those wild dreams. I don't even really want anymore, because they were destructive and not spiritual. And, so I always say that I live a life beyond anything that I ever imagined, because I didn't imagine my life would be this peaceful and good and kind and loving.
Right.
I what I imagined was yachts and naked women and alcohol and partying. That's what I imagined.
Right.
So it's what I dreamed of. Never worked out like that though. Like my shit was always like yours. Like I was just a fucking destructive path of meth.
Yeah, it was destruction for sure. For sure. On my own moral fiber, it was destruction. And, you know, like I thought, oh, I'm not hurting anybody. I knew I was hurting my son,
Yeah.
but I'm not hurting anybody else. I'm not, you know, yeah, I'd steal your dope and help you look for it, but I wouldn't steal your money, and I wouldn't, you know, I was a better class of an ass, right? Like I wouldn't do that type of stuff.
I might steal your dope and then scrape some of the shit off of the ceiling and put it in the bag and put it back in your pocket when you were sleeping.
When was it, like, what was it that finally you were like, I'm done? Because you said it was like your 12th time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what made the 12th one hit hard for you?
Well,
To change something.
I think looking at 2.5 years and I think, you know, state time, looking at that and then just admitting to my innermost self that, like, truly admitting that, like, you're messed up, like you seriously have a problem, and realizing that it was the spiritual absence. And I never realized that before until I was talking to my grandmother. And I don't know, you know, it was my spiritual experience, right? You know, it was all God. I didn't put 2 and 2 together until way later, but it was, you know, I like to call them God winks, because like being on that highway and not hitting my head or my face, you know, that's the first God wink, even though I turned my back on God. I had this Bible that, you know, I'm homeless and everybody stole all my stuff, but they never stole this dang Bible. And this Bible would follow me everywhere. Like, I'm like, dang, this Bible. And I'd open it up and I'd be reading like the book of Acts, and I'd be high as a kite and be like, haha, look at this. But it was God's way of showing up for me when I couldn't show up for myself in the weirdest, strangest ways. And then, you know, somebody would come into this restaurant I was working at, because I finally had a job, and they would read the Bible. And since I knew, because I read it, I'd be like, well, what about this? And what about that? And he would just ever so gently. And I remember that night saying, okay, God, if you're real, help me. That's literally the night I got arrested. So like, help me. And it was either the next day or that night. And that was the way God helped me. And then he revealed himself through my grandmother. And I asked him into my heart that day before I went back to court. And I was let out of, you know, jail on house arrest and community service and $4,000 of restitution. And I shouldn't have, I was a runner, so I shouldn't have been let out. And I knew that was all God. And so it was this, I'm going to give you this one last ditch effort to show me. And so that's what I did. And I started going to church, and I started doing, you know, that first, and building my faith. But like I said, I was getting high and still drinking. And so all I could think of when during church was like, when is this going to be over? I promise God I'll sit here, but when is this going to be over so I can go get high? And it was, somebody said, if you aren't an alcoholic, why don't you just try to stop drinking? And I'm like, all right, I'll prove you wrong. And it ended up, you know, getting me sober. And I've stayed since then. Because I saw my son at a dance with me. We were at this AA dance, and he was with me, and he was laughing, and he was dancing with me, and he was smiling, and we were bonding, and I wanted that so bad. I just wanted to be his mom with every fiber of my being. I wanted to be his mom. And I knew in that moment, because Mother's Day was actually the next day, I knew in that moment that I was done. That I would not be able to be his mom fully if I didn't stop doing what I was doing. And so I was done.
Wow.
So.
How old was your son at that time?
I got sober when he was 11.
11?
Yeah, he was 11. He was turning 12 in June. So I got sober May 14th, and he turned 12 June 27th. And so he was 11 when I got sober, and thus began our journey of like this recovery mom. And he was like my road dog, dances together. Like he was removed from his dad, and I went and fought for him because I had to do some stuff, because I was allowed to see him, but when the courts got involved, they were like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Then I had to do a drug program, a 6-month program. After I was already 6 months sober, but once that happened, you have to do a drug program. You've got to do parenting. You've got to do all of this. And so I did it all, and I got my son back within 6 months.
Wow.
And I fought for my son to actually, because he wanted to be with his dad too, because they were going to give me full custody. And I fought for him to have joint custody. Because there's one thing that his dad never did was he never kept him from me when I was out there. He would always show up with my son, and we'd get a hotel, and he'd let me spend time with my son. He never kept my son from me.
Wow.
So I'm forever grateful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's not norm.
No, not at all. But that's what I needed to get me where I'm at today. Like, because my son, I got sober for my son. Luckily, I stayed sober for myself, but I got sober for him initially.
Which, you can do that initially. Like, we can get sober for somebody else, and hopefully during that time, that seed gets planted and a root gets driven in, and a plant starts to blossom and bud, and then our life starts to get better. Because I'm not necessarily a believer that you have to, like, with all your heart and soul be ready to do this deal, because I've seen people that have come into, like, rehab, and I thought for sure this person was this was it. They're gonna do it, and they're the first ones to relapse. And the person that came in on an intervention that didn't even want to be here. That Ken Seeley chased around, like, I'm not even kidding you, like Baker Act, rehab or Baker Act in Florida, and he was pissed. I think he stayed sober for the first month just off the resentment towards his family.
For sure.
And then something happened.
Yeah.
So it does work a lot easier if you come in with willingness, though.
Sure.
But then it's like, we also have to be honest. We have to get honest, because this disease, this thing that we have, it's gnarly.
Yeah.
And your story is so powerful, though, just because, add on top of the disease all of the trauma that surfaced before the disease. And I do want to ask you, if you think all the way back to as far back as you can remember, do you have feelings of maybe feeling different even way back then before trauma? Do you go back there? Do you think you had the disease before the trauma?
Oh, for sure. My thinking was twisted, even from a little kid. I remember manipulating from even before. I mean, it was a babysitter, and I was thinking about this the other day. I had this this babysitter, and she's was like, whoever goes to sleep first, I'm taking to Disneyland and this and that. And I wasn't asleep, but I heard what she was saying, so I pretended to be asleep. So I won a trip to Disneyland, and that set my path to learning how to manipulate. I was like, dang, this little thing that happened when I was a young kid taught me how to manipulate the situation to get what I want. And I was like, wow, this is really, really crazy that popped up in my head just like the other day. And I was like, wow, that's pretty crazy. So I was most definitely different, even in school. Me and my sister were teased in school at a really young age. We grew up in, poor socioeconomic areas. We were really poor. Stole water from the city just to flush our toilets type poor, and so we grew up in these neighborhoods where, I would be the only Caucasian in the area. And so there was some things happening in that area because of that. And so me and my sister would get teased, we'd get chased home, and people would try to beat my sister up. And a lot of stuff would happen as a result of just being in certain areas. That began I'm going to be this chameleon I'm going to, taught me how to even be whatever you wanted me to be. I'll be whoever you want me to be for safety. And I did that in school. I did that with disassociating with my stepfather. I did that with, to the point where I didn't even know who I was at all, because I was what everybody else wanted me to be. Mm-hmm. And through recovery, I had to figure out who I was. And that just actually, really happened recently, to be honest with you, because some other things happened in recovery that made me really take a look at all the labels, the societal labels, the labels I put on myself, and the negative thinking that I had growing up. And so that just recently happened in terms of really uncovering and discovering Samantha the person outside of all of these other things.
Let's talk a little bit about your recovery, because you got, you've been in recovery a long time.
Gosh, I can't believe that still. It seems like yesterday. It really does.
How's your relationship with your family?
I have a great relation. I mean, in terms of my immediate family, or my mom and my dad?
Yeah, your mom and dad.
So, they did the best they could with what they had. And my mom, we reunited after 20 years, about 6 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And she actually moved in with me 2 years ago. And there was a lot of things that came about with her living with me. But now she's leaving again on the 8th of January. And so I had to deal with some feelings of abandonment because, she wants to go back to Washington. And so that little girl inside of me started popping up again, I'm feeling abandoned. I'm feeling, like you don't love me. I'm feeling unseen. I'm feeling not enough. Again, all of these things that when I left at 14 years old started resurfacing just recently. And so, and then I realized my mom can't be her authentic self, living with me. Because we don't, we go to church, we go to meetings, we don't drink, and she wants to party. My mom wants to have that's her life, and that's what she wants to do. She wants to drink and have fun at the Elks Lodge and whatever, right? Yeah. And so she doesn't want to do that with, at the home, but she feels like she can't do anything. And so she's like, I want to go back to Washington. And so because she can't be her authentic self, I understand that. And, thank God for the steps in recovery, because having had worked through some things, I had to own my own stuff, right? And recognize and normalize how I was feeling, but at the same time, be able to accept the fact that my mom needed to be who she is.
Yeah.
And I'm in a place where I can be present with my mom now, and just appreciate the time I have with my mom. Because unfortunately, I'm not sure if I'll see her again. And that's the truth. I don't know if she's coming back, and she says she is, but we reunited after 20 years, and she's not the kind of person that reaches out. So it was me always doing the reaching out, And then as far as my dad goes, my dad, my grandmother passed away in 2000 during COVID. Tragically, and she fell and hit her head and had a brain bleed, and it was very tragic and sudden. And then my dad, after that, because of my son and my daughter, and then his mom, went into this hole of depression, and now he's in Bullhead City in his little place, and he's just stuck in this pit of despair and doing whatever he's doing. And so it's me checking up on my parents to make sure they're okay. And that's how it's really always been, is me checking up on my parents to make sure they're okay. Mm-hmm. Or doing whatever I'm doing with my parents, right? That's kind of how it was. My dad was my co-defendant in one of my cases. And it was, that's just the kind of relationship that we had. And so that's kind of now it's just calling to check up on them and make sure they're okay. Mm-hmm. And just waiting to see what potentially could happen. Sure. Because of the decisions that they're making.
Mm-hmm. And then you and your son, good?
Unfortunately, 2018, my son was playing with a weapon while he was intoxicated, and it was either accidental or it was suicide, and he shot and killed himself. And that like changed the direction like of my, because that happened in recovery. And then 2 months later, my husband at the time had an affair, which ended up causing a divorce, and then COVID hit. And so I was sitting here, dealing with my son's death, because it was a homicide at first. And so from September to February, I was doing this investigation with all his friends that were there, trying to get, information and trying to find out who killed my son. And when the forensics came back, what they found out is that he had the residue on his hand, and it was him. And so, undetermined on his death certificate. So that will always be like what happened, what really happened. And I'll never know the truth about that. And so I'm actually I just started going through grief therapy for my son, because, anger is a much easier emotion to deal with than grief. And so I stayed angry at my ex-husband during COVID. I was very, very angry and resentful. And I didn't really like, I didn't like Zoom meetings, and church was removed. And so like I sat there with my thoughts and brewing, and my resentment brewing. And they say resentment is the number one offender. And it actually like spiritually killed me and almost took me out. Not in the way that I would get loaded, but I knew I was either going to commit suicide or I was going to get loaded, one or the other. But luckily I had this foundation, the spiritual foundation, that I knew something spiritually was wrong, and I knew I had to get busy. And so I had to start doing the things that I was doing before. But it took me a while to work through some of the resentment, because I felt robbed from the grief.
Sure.
And so my son and I's relationship up to that point was, I would, he made some bad decisions, and I would, try to be that mom to talk to him. And, he's buying guns, and I got him a safe, like, at least keep your guns in the safe. Like, I'm not trying to tell him not to do these things, because he was 23, and, he was under the influence. It seems like cocaine and alcohol and marijuana. I never got his toxicology, because I really don't need to know. But his friends told me that. And so during that time, like, I'm feeling anger towards my son. I'm feeling anger towards, my ex. And then I'm just feeling absolutely alone. Mm-hmm. And that began my journey of like uncovering like me, the person, like who God says I am, and not what society says I am, not what those the stinking thinking and negative, thought processes say I am.
Yeah.
I had to really, really dig deep and find out who the person who Samantha the woman was, and really kind of own that. And I'm still all of those things, those labels.
Sure.
I was, it was hard because I'm a mom with no kids, at the time. How did I like reconcile that? I was a wife with no husband now. How do I reconcile that? I'm an AA member with no, recovery. I'm a church member with no church. I was all of these things with nothing. And it really was a sad place to be, but it was this molding place that I needed to be to get where I'm at today.
And through all of this, you've had continuous sobriety. Definitely a God.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hearing that though. My wife just got a call from her ex boyfriends, her very first boyfriend in her life. They had 4 boys, and the last one just passed away 3 weeks ago.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
So, I mean, it's just your story is probably one of the most powerful stories of recovery that I've ever,
for sure. If you can do it,
heard.
Like, because
like nobody
pain,
else has any fucking excuse
right,
on why they can't
stay with it.
Stay the course and stay sober. What do you think? After your son's passing, what do you think like for you kept you going? What gave you that inner strength and not to go get loaded or not to do something stupid to yourself and through all of that?
At first, it was pure rage and anger. Like that, I think, I think that kept me like treading water for quite some time, because you can stay sober on resentment for a minute. But I knew God is the answer, right? That down to the fundamental part of it is God. But initially it was, I leaned into God until COVID hit. And then I leaned into my resentment and anger because this thing just kept going and going and going. And then I leaned back into God. But my relationship still was not strong with God because I had a resentment towards God even. And I didn't realize it until I realized it a year and a half ago, but I still couldn't shake the resentment I had. And because I was like, seriously, God, again? Like, why? And I had all these questions. And when I realized it's like, it goes back to, human beings trying to blame something for what's taken place. And the reality is the person to blame is the person that was playing with the weapon. And it was really hard for me as a mom to accept that, because you can't blame he's in the ground. I can't blame the dead, and I had to blame something else I can stay angry on. And so I stayed angry with God, and my relationship was very much so damaged by that. And then I started doing the things I needed to do again, and that's what kept me moving and working with others, getting back into the book, and really digging my feet in to recovery itself. Knowing that there is a creator outside of me who I called God and Jesus, right? Knowing that that's the facts, but still it was like being upset with my husband, right? I'm upset with you. So and I was upset with him for a very, very long time. And, but that's how I stayed sober. I stayed sober through pure rage and then trying to gain this relationship with my creator again. And I'm grateful that I'm back at square one where I was before it happened in terms of relationship.
And are you remarried today?
I am.
Oh, you are?
I am remarried. I didn't think that was going to happen either, because men were not my thing. I actually, it happened by chance, because I actually dated this person about 17 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
And, we dated for about 4 months. I met him in the rooms, and we dated for about 4 months. But he respectfully, and he did it in a great way. He said, I'm going to get back together with my high school sweetheart, or his junior high sweetheart. And he said, I don't mean to hurt you, but I have to try it with her another, one more time. And I said, okay, cool. Thank you for letting me know and not being a douchebag about it, And he went his way, and he actually ended up marrying this woman and having a child with this woman. I went my way, ended up getting married, and we both divorced close to the same year. And I actually almost ran him over at one of the clubs. I was backing up, and he was there, and I almost hit him. I'm like, oh, and then we started talking. He's like, hey, do you remember me? And we started talking again, and I was not even interested in a relationship whatsoever. I didn't date for a very long time after my divorce, and during the time of our divorce, I was not interested in anybody at all. And so I wasn't even looking to get into a relationship, and it literally just happened. He moved in within a couple of months. We got engaged within 3 months.
Wow. We
got married April of 24? Yeah.
Aha! Finally, a woman was questioning the date.
well, because we got married in our living room.
Oh, you did?
And that was just because I have a daughter now. And it was because she's a teen, and we were, because of what we spiritually believe, we were living together. We weren't married. We were sleeping in the same bed. And I want to be an example to this little girl. And so we actually got married before we had our big ceremony. And like, we literally got married in our living room and signed the paperwork and just did the legal part of it. And then we got married in, oh my gosh, now I'm
sorry. It's usually it's usually us guys like messing this thing up, and your husband's gonna be watching this podcast.
Oh my gosh, he's gonna kill me because I'm all nervous now. We got married a couple months later.
That's amazing.
Wow. I mean, I like the fact that like you almost ran him over and
out of the nowhere, just like
because you're saying all this stuff, and me personally, I'm thinking about Natalie and her life right now, and I'm like, that's all I'm thinking. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna make it about Natalie, but like,
I mean, I was thinking about it too. I hope I almost hit someone.
Just go out in the parking lot, just try to mow down some dude.
They're gonna be like, "What's Natalie doing? Oh, she's backing up again." Every fucking hour on the hour, I'm backing up my car.
Eventually, he'll be there. Like, just pray for him. He'll be there. I wasn't thinking that, but what I was thinking is that like she's feeling like she said things like doomsday, like and I'm all that there's always hope.
Yeah.
There's always hope. And you can never say never.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it was not planned.
Were you feeling like never before you ran back in him?
Ran him over?
Ran him over.
Ran back in him. Wow.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I guess. I mean, your story is very tragic, and like so. Having some comedy at the end is
it's actually nice.
It's actually nice,
right?
But also, it's like it's also beautiful of like you stayed with it, and it seems like you're happy this current moment.
I am. I have. During the COVID time and me sitting in my darkness, I applied for foster care, and that was like also something that I wanted to hold on to, and I didn't even think I was going to get it, to be honest with you, because I was working on my record and based off of things that happened, and so I went through DCFS, and but there was so much I was doing in terms of work. I was in children's ministry, and I had all these letters of recommendation. So they did like a 6 months to 8 months of criminal background, like scraping and making sure that I was psychologically okay, because I had lost 2 children, and they wanted to make sure that I wasn't like projecting onto this other child. And so they did all of this. And as a matter of fact, 3 days ago, 6 years ago, I got the phone call saying, I don't know how this happened, but you got approved. And that began this journey, and it was my Christmas miracle. And in June, a week before my son's 25th birthday, that would have been, I got the phone call about this little girl needing a home. And I had a dream. God told me, you're gonna work with teens. And I was like, no, I'm not. Absolutely not. And I remember in the dream, he said, do you remember what you promised me? If you got approved, you would do whatever age that I wanted you to do. And so she was 12 when she was placed. She turned 13. Yeah, she turned 13 a month later, and she's 18 and a half now, accepted to Cal Baptist social work program, and like she's 3.5, 3.7 GPA, and like this little girl has been, this light of my life, you know, and my husband's life. And now I have, you know, my stepdaughter who's 7, who is like this amazing little girl with my daughter. They're like 2 little peas in a pod. And I literally have this, I went from being alone with my dog during COVID to having this entire family.
Wow.
With 3 dogs and a tortoise and the rest of my family, right? And it's crazy
That's wild.
from going from nothing to this whole family.
Wow.
And it's been an amazing journey to really understand what recovery can do for a person, and what not only recovery, but the relationship with your higher power, right? This relationship with God, you know, that recovery introduced me to, that has solved all of my problems, as the big book talks about, you know, getting you in contact with the power greater than yourself that can solve all your problems. And it truly has been solving all of my problems if I just get out of the way. Like if I just do step 3 and surrender, right? And get out of the way, and get into acceptance, like all my problems are solved, truly.
Damn, your story is wild. Like it really is. Like from just the moment everything kind of started for in your young childhood to even just the where you're at today of even the placement of your daughter. Like that's wild.
Yeah.
Like if your story isn't a glimmer of hope to somebody that God is real, I don't know what to tell you, because your story has so much of it in it. Like it really does.
All God.
It's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, God bless you, and I just hope that you continue down this beautiful journey that you've been on, because like, I mean, it's crazy to me because you know, so many people, like things that have happened are some of those things that people have on their list of, you know, I wouldn't be able to make it through this, and you've made it through this, and because of this, you're given a second family. I mean,
right?
Like, how beautiful is that?
Yeah.
And the 18-year-old is just like killing it.
Just killing it.
Like, what? Wow.
And she works. So that's like
Yeah.
On top of like maintaining grades, and you know, she works, and like it's crazy because she initially was like, I'm going to work at McDonald's and take care of you the rest of my life. And I was like, yeah, that's not happening. Right. And just for her to have hopes and dreams, like to see beyond what the circumstance she was living in is amazing to me, you know, and it's blows my mind at like how far she's come in really a short time, you know?
Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Thank you so much for coming down and being extremely vulnerable and doing our podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I definitely appreciate it. And thank you for all that you guys do in recovery. I definitely, people like you are needed. So thank you.
Thank you.
Like yourself too, I just want to end on like, you're an incredibly strong woman to endure not only what you have, but to continue to walk this walk and to come out here today to share your story. Because that is not easy either, to continue to like have to almost like, you know, you relive a little bit of our stories when we retell them. Yeah. And it's really, really powerful. So the strength that is within you, which obviously I think that you believe as well as I do, like we get it from God, is a true testament of like the power that he has and that what he can do in all of us.
100%.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.